This is a car. And if I remember how to run one of these things, we're finally going to go somewhere. What am I doing here? Is there a key? Do I hit? Yeah, okay, unlock. All right. Man, I've been away too long. This could take a while. I'll see you in a bit. Good morning. I'm up at the crack of 9. That's early for me. And we're gonna take a trip eventually. All right, and that goes there. Got it. Woohoo! Weird to be moving this fast now. So first I want to apologize for something. When I started this show, the one thing I never wanted it to be was me and me alone talking all the time. But because of the situation that we're in, that's pretty much what you're going to get. I'm going to try to up my game in storytelling. Today we're going to Joshua Tree National Park. This is a place that has a lot of significance for me, because there was a point in my life when I was pretty closed in. I started living a lot of my life online. And it's very similar to what we've all been going through for the last 2 months. And I had to do something. So I made a vow that I was going to completely change my life in 1 year. And I kept that vow, and the last thing I did in that year was my first trip to Asia. But the first thing I did was go to Joshua Tree. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you why we're going back. And I'll tell you the story of Billy Wasco. So during my time kind of being shut in, I got especially interested in mysteries of missing people. And I came across a website for a guy that had spent the last 3 years searching for a missing hiker. He put all of his search tracks and the reports of his search and all of the information online. And I spent a couple of weeks going down the rabbit hole of his website, and I found a spot I thought they ought to look. So I sent him an email, being the cheeky guy that I am, and said, hey, here's this spot, someone ought to go look at it. The guy whose name was Tom Hood sent me an email back and said, okay, go look. Told me where to park, told me where to go, told me how to get there. The first thing that I realized I had to do, coming out of that sort of depressed and isolated place in my life, was I had to run towards things that frightened me. And this was the first thing that came before me that scared me. Instead of saying, are you crazy? I'm not going to go out to Joshua Tree and go look for some guy. And I said, yes, I will go. And I outfitted myself. I went to some pretty rugged country. You can find some of that on YouTube. It's still up. And I didn't find him, but I kind of found myself. I went back 19 more times looking for the guy. Never found him. But once I took that risk and nothing bad happened, it was the first step out of my room. I've been stuck in Reseda for the last 10 weeks. This is the first time I've been mobile. It seems like the right time to go back and take another look around. Oh, and my hair is always a disaster, but we have no haircuts yet, so we're just gonna have to roll with the weird hair. I got bangs down to my nose. We're almost there. The sign said there'd be a long wait, but this doesn't look too bad. This is what we're looking at. They just let us in. That's weird. He's decided to stop taking money. Well, there you have it. So this is Joshua Tree National Park. Quite a change from where you've seen me before, but before I started hanging out in Southeast Asia, this was my jam. And I have to say, after having been in California for 2.5 months and not really being in California, it is a genuine thrill to be here right now and to show this to you. Now, when the mystery started at this very spot, Juniper Flats Trailhead, it wasn't crowded like this. But there's actually a ton of people here. Had it been like that day, probably it would have turned out differently. And I'm actually going to get to talk to other people. Where are you guys from?
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. And are they all locked down over there? I got to keep distanced here.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And what brought you to Juniper Flats today?
Well, there are no campgrounds that are open, so our backup option was to kind of do some backcountry.
So this show I'm trying to do all professional and stuff with a tripod, but I probably should have got a tripod that's taller than I am. In 1 month and 1 day, it will be exactly 10 years since Billy Osco disappeared from this parking lot right about where I'm standing. Billy Osco came to Joshua Tree pretty much every year. He got a rental car and he started on his way out here, called his girlfriend early in the morning, said he was on his way to Joshua Tree. Now, he didn't tell his girlfriend where he was going for sure, but he did tell her that he planned to be out by 5 and get dinner at a place called Pappy and Harriet's. When he didn't make the appointed call, a search was instituted for Mr. Osco, who we'll call Bill from now on. His car was finally located right where these folks are parked right now. Are you guys freaked out? Is this like a ghost story for you guys?
A little bit, yeah. When was it kind of realized that he was missing?
Thursday night, June 24th, 2010. But his car was not found here until Saturday evening, I think, or Saturday afternoon, late Saturday afternoon, early Saturday evening.
Moved.
What's that?
The car was moved while he was lost?
That is a point of contention in this mystery. The first night, they basically opened up the road there. They drove the Jeep up calling out his name. That first night, there was a small search and people thought that they could see lights up on the ridge line. But the ranger that was helping them search didn't see them. The next several days, there was no trace of them, except for one ping from his cell phone, which was in such an odd and impossible place that the searchers ignored it at first. One other person had been here the same day, and they had reported there was no one here when they got here, and when they got back, Bill's car was there, and there were fresh footprints heading down the road. However, later when they brought track dogs out, they seemed to follow his scent on a parallel trail down that way. However, the track dogs also identified him as the owner of 2 water bottles that they found cached up in the mountains, but the real owner of the water bottles came forward later. Those same dogs ID'd a bandana that was found, which may or may not have belonged to Bill. He was known to hike with a bandana and sometimes drop it on a trail if he wanted to mark a spot. And that's the only trace of him that was ever found, if it was any trace at all. Okay, I think I'm about ready to head out. I'll tell you the rest of the story on the way. And off we go. Now you might wonder why it took days to find his car. There's a couple of good reasons for that. The ranger that came down this road to check to see if Bill's car was parked at any one of these parking lots reported not once but twice that it wasn't there. Not long after his second report, a different ranger happened to see the car but claimed that it was parked back to front. Now, it's hard to make sense of this. I came up with a theory once that someone could have moved the car out of the park and brought it in with a U-Haul, which a lot of people made fun of, and it is a little far-fetched, but it would explain why suddenly the car was back to front and later was found front to back the way it was left. If you discount the first ranger as just not knowing what the hell he was doing, it's been suggested that the second park employee that saw the car, she might have seen the tags in his windshield from the road going this way and might have thought it was back to front. But the bottom line is, assuming Bill's car was never moved, the guy that went to look for it somehow didn't see it. Bill had left an itinerary of places he wanted to visit. Turns out on that itinerary there were a number of places within an easy walk or drive of where I'm standing. So he could have been anywhere in the park or not here at all. There was nothing to indicate that Bill was out for more than a little stroll. He didn't take much water with him. At least it doesn't look like he did. He might have had as little as 2 12-ounce bottles. And this is May, that was June. And I'm already with this pack on getting a little winded just carrying this thing and talking to you. And I got a lot more water than he did. And yet, they had some of the best search and rescue people in Southern California looking all through here, and as you see, it's not heavily vegetated. There's not a lot of cover. I've never felt older than I do right now. Hey, how you doing? Good. Not as solitary as I thought it was going to be. Two and a half days after Bill went missing, a cell phone tower picked up a very, very brief ping from Bill's cell phone. They weren't able to triangulate where it was at, but they were able to get a distance, 10.6 miles from Sarin Tower, the Verizon cell tower in Yucca Valley. 10.6 miles is a radius that sweeps through here about 10 miles north of here. The area the cell phone tower showed Bill's phone would be pinging from was so far north of where searchers thought that he would go or want to go or could go that at first they ignored it. Yeah, okay. Well, that woke me up. You'd think after all that hiking in Southeast Asia, it wouldn't take me that long to get my desert legs back. Maybe not. Well, the old road finally ended, and I was just about convinced I was on the wrong trail. But this is Juniper Flat. When the dogs traced Bill, they traced him to near this area, and then, if it was him at all, lost the scent. Now, once he got to this area, he could have continued on the California Riding and Hiking Trail or up over Quail Mountain, which is right there. Those are really the only ways he could have gotten within 10.6 miles of the Sarin Tower. And you say, well, maybe the mileage was off. Well, it might have been, but because of physics, it seems that the miles, if they're off, need to be closer to the tower. And the tower is that way. Even if the miles are completely off, to be able to reach the tower, in theory, he had to be on the other side of that mountain range. So the big mystery has been, why didn't he just go back? None of these options feels remotely tempting to me at the moment. And I'm younger, I have more water, and it's quite a bit cooler than the day Bill was here 10 years ago. I want to give you my impressions of this walk because they're a little weird. This is going to be a little complicated, and I'll try to get it to you clearly in my heat-stroked brain at the moment. When I got here, things were not how I expected. You see, my understanding was, from studying this mystery and from the maps, there were two paths to this point from the trailhead. There's the California Riding and Hiking Trail, which is a footpath, and then there's the old Juniper Flats Road Jeep Trail, which ends here, which I came up. And then there's the Stubby Springs Trail, which goes off to the south and comes back in, okay? So when I was walking down the road, I saw signs indicating it was the California Riding and Hiking Trail. In other words, the footpath that was to the north of me, it was saying that was what I was on. When I got here, I found the footpath that I knew from the maps as California Riding and Hiking Trail, the real one. Now, there were signs on the road indicating the road was the California Riding and Hiking Trail, and it would take me to Lower Covington Flat, which is way up there. We'll get to that in a little bit. But when I got to the actual California Riding and Hiking Trail, there was no marker pointing me to go further up that trail to get to Lower Covington Flat. So it was really confusing. Adding to that, this walk up here took about twice as long as I expected it to. So I was really starting to think that the California Riding and Hiking Trail was what I was on, and I was halfway to Covington Flat. Now, I don't know if those signs are new, but Bill was a map guy just like me, but I don't think he'd ever been here before. If he was going up this road just like I was, he probably would have gotten pretty confused. Because the theory is that he went up to Quail and was out of water, so he decided to go on further to a place called Smithwater Canyon, where he would have thought there was water and got injured trying to get there, which is easy to believe. And we've looked all over for him up there and not found him. But look, I'm going to be pushing it to get back in time myself. If I was him, I wouldn't have been messing around. Now granted, he got started earlier than I did, but still he started no earlier than 10:20. So could he have thought he was in the wrong place? Started bushwhacking back? I still don't know how that puts him over there. Would he really have gone to climb Quail Mountain in this set of circumstances? I wouldn't have done it. Okay, I'm on my way back, and this is what I'm talking about. This is the trail that I know as the California Riding and Hiking Trail. And if I was feeling a little less risk averse, I would probably take that trail back. However, there are two signs on this road that mark this to be the California Riding and Hiking Trail, and that taking this road will take you to Lower Covington. In order to get to Lower Covington, you would have to know to turn left here, and there is no sign whatsoever. I don't know what to make of that. Was it like that 10 years ago? I don't know. I mean, according to the original records, they saw new footprints going down the road, this. But the dogs supposedly traced him to the junction point with the California Riding and Hiking Trail. There. But which California Riding and Hiking Trail? Did the dogs come down the one they've marked or the one that's on the map? Anyway, in theory, this is where we lose Bill. Even if it wasn't like that 10 years ago, it's sure confusing now. And this took a lot longer and was a lot more exposed than I expected. Probably would have been the same for Bill. He probably wouldn't have wanted to turn around till he got to the end of the road. Although who knows, really. But why keep going? So remember when I told you that Bill's phone went off Sunday morning just after dawn, coming from a point 10.6 miles from the tower? That almost exactly coincides with a place called Smithwater Canyon, which is about 2 miles past that mountain range behind me. The only problem with that is the whole top of the south side of Smithwater Canyon is lit up with cell phone coverage at about 11 miles out, 11 and a half miles out from Sarin Tower. Now remember what we said, apparently if there's an error in the reading, it's got to be closer to Sarin Tower. Now right at 10.6 puts you right in the middle of that canyon. There's no cell reception at the bottom of a canyon, or at least not usually. Now, there's a little bit on the north side of the canyon, but that is even nastier to get up than the south side is to get down. So for Bill to get up there, he has to go down into the canyon and then back up for some reason. Now, did I mention that once you're that far north, you're near Lower Covington Trailhead, you're a couple miles from Joshua Tree Village, you can walk to Park Road, the road that we came in on, you're almost out. And the other thing is, it's 2 miles from past that mountain to Smithwater Canyon. He's gone from Thursday night to Sunday morning. He's rattling around in there, injured maybe, for 2 days with cell phone coverage. And then his phone goes off further north where there's no cell reception. And then suddenly he's gone. Whoosh! And there's really nowhere for him to go. If he goes down, he's almost a civilization. If he goes back, well, they should have found him in the initial search. If the whole thing was wrong and he was just around here, it's the first place that they looked. This is an old road of some sort. I'm not going to go very far because I'm pushing it as it is. Oh, I see. Okay, so this is another thing. You got these markers for the Stubby Springs Loop Trail. And it's interesting. I didn't think the Stubby Springs Loop Trail was on an old road. That's really kind of interesting. I'm just going to go down to the edge there. Unfortunately, it's getting so late, I don't have time to explore this anymore. Maybe just a little bit more. I'm wondering, since this is not a trail but an old road, looks like it was constructed about the same time as the one we were on, I could see him conceivably getting off the main road and onto this thinking it was the same thing. One of the early theories the searchers had, and that I came up with later, was that Bill might have come back on this trail and wound up going down a wash when he should have gotten out and gone to the other side and wound up in that canyon down there, and maybe wound up tracking north, which also would kind of get him in the area he would have had to have been in. And this whole area is a cell phone dead zone, which is a little scary at the moment. But if he was rattling around in here, it would explain why we never found his water bottles, any sign of him camping, anything like that, because this whole area hasn't really been searched. But this whole area isn't close enough to the tower. He would have had to have tracked up there, and we've looked up that way. Another thing that's just hitting me is, if he did come up from the parking lot on that little trail, could he have missed the road that we came in on at that weird little junction I showed you before and just kept on going? He would have wound up in a dead zone heading up towards Smithwater Canyon. He could have missed the road. There were those 2 logs on either side of it. Maybe if he was pointing straight ahead and just kept right on going. That's the big mystery about this, is why didn't Bill just go back to his car? Well, he may have been trying to get to the end of the trail just like I have been, and kept going and going, figuring it was just a little bit further, until he was clear on the other side of the mountain range. I gotta rest, my legs are starting to cramp up. It's closing in on 6. Now, if you're gonna go hiking out in remote wilderness, don't do what Bill did. Make sure you leave specific instructions with somebody to call out the Mounties if you don't show up by a certain time, and tell them where you're at. I did. The difficulty is, I gotta be out and in cell reception by 9, or there will be people looking for me. I can make it. I don't know if I can make it without resting, but I'm gonna try. That's nice though. God, it's great to be out of Reseda. This is great. I gotta be here. I wanna be here. So anyway, to keep my mind off my sore back, let's talk about the other possibilities. What if the reason we can't find Bill is that he's just not here? He met with foul play or staged his own disappearance. Well, it sounds a little far-fetched, but it does fit in some ways. If you were gonna do away with somebody out here somehow, or if you were going to do away with yourself or make yourself disappear, you'd want to make sure people were focused on looking for a lost hiker and not focused on reports that your car had been moved. The interesting thing about the Sunday morning ping is it takes place just before the first full day of searching starts. Now, there is a spot called Upper Covington Flat, and there's a spot on the edge of it that has Verizon reception at almost exactly 10.6 miles from Sarin Tower. What's more, you can look this spot up on Verizon's coverage map, and you could back then also. So if you wanted to throw everybody off the track, even though that's about the most remote area you can get to from here and still be walking, there is a road that goes down to it. And if you got up at the break of dawn, you can drive down there on this road, take it out of your car, walk, I think it's a mile, half mile, a mile, easy terrain. You go out, wave Bill's phone around until it starts to connect, turn it off, go back, leave. Does that sound far-fetched? Yeah, if he's a lost hiker, because he wouldn't have done it. But if something else happened, well, that's how I would have done it. Do I think that's what happened? I don't know what happened. The whole thing's weird. So what happened to Tom Mahood, the guy that had the website that got me out of my room and started me on a path to a new life? He gave up in 2018, ran out of places to look and moved out of the area. I gave up about the same time, same reasons. And you'll notice I'm not looking for bodies today. I'm just taking a walk and thinking about the place that started a very long journey. It took me much further than this. But there are other people looking. People smarter than me, people that are better hikers than me, people that are more determined than me. And I'm excited to see what they come up with. Me, I'm just walking around.
Walking and looking over my shoulder, checking to see if you're still there. You used to be shy, now you're a little bolder, but you laid it down.